Good morning and welcome. My name is Marilyn Midyat. I'm a very proud member of the class of 1975. It's also my joy and privilege to serve as your executive director of the William & Mary Alumni Association. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. By all accounts, Charter Day is already a smashing success. We had a wonderful celebration at William & Mary Hall yesterday afternoon. And for those of you who were at the Lord Botetourt affair last night, all I can say is, wow. And glad you're here this morning because I understand a number of you didn't get to bed until about 2 o'clock in the morning. But I wanted to congratulate our friends in athletics, Terry Driscoll, Bobby Dwyer, and particularly to thank our many alumni volunteers that made last evening's event possible under the leadership and direction of Nancy Matthews, Barb Ramsey, and Patty Dwyer. So thank you guys very much for a smashing event. However, lest you think you're going to have to wait an entire year for another wonderful William & Mary weekend, I want you all to mark your calendars for June 2nd through 5th because we're taking the college on the road. We've got a new series called the William & Mary Weekends. The first one is going to be in Washington, D.C., and our goal and objective for the weekend is to really bring the very best of William & Mary to that particular region and to bring the very best of that particular region to our William & Mary family with some very unique programs and cultural tours and events. So again, you don't have to wait a whole nother year. We're taking the college on the road, and we hope you'll join us then. But now on with the show. It's a great honor to be here today and to welcome all of you to the 2016 Alumni Medallion Awards ceremony. I'd like to thank the William & Mary Alumni Association Board of Directors, who is your host for today. We're also joined by Rector Todd Stottlemyre and President and Mrs. Reevely, and if I could have all of you stand and be recognized, that would be terrific. Thank you. Come on, stand up, be recognized. And of course, we're also indebted to the William & Mary Choir under the direction of Dr. Jamie Armstrong. We were once in a college dorm trying to sleep on Saturday morning. So to get you out of bed and come here before noon, I know is quite a feat. So thank you very much. Since 1934, more than 250 alumni have received the Alumni Medallion. It is the highest alumni award a graduate can receive from our association. The award recognizes outstanding alumni who have proven their commitment, dedication, and support to the College of William & Mary. In addition, they have established exemplary achievements in their chosen professions and careers, and have rendered leadership service to their communities, states, or nations. This award is given in honor of accomplishments in those three areas, but it also is in recognition of the esteem, dignity, and notoriety that extraordinary lives of achievement, unselfish leadership, and service bestow on our alma mater. Some of these prior recipients are here with us today, and I'd like them to stand and join and be recognized as well. I think we may need some lights. So today's presentation continues our proud tradition of honoring William & Mary's very best. The president of the Alumni Association, Cindy Jarbo, asked me to extend her welcome and her regrets that she could not join us today. She had a death in the family and was called out of town, but she asked me to extend her personal congratulations to all the Alumni Medallion winners today and to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Glenn Crawford, who is the Vice President of the William & Mary Alumni Association Board of Directors, and he will be making the Alumni Medallion Awards today. Glenn?
Good morning. As Vice President of the William & Mary Alumni Association, it's my privilege and personal pleasure to join Marilyn in welcoming you to this event. This is a celebration that draws the finest of the college community, students, faculty, alumni, staff, and friends. We are especially honored today that many of our recipients' family members and close friends are with us. 323 years ago, the College of William & Mary began its important mission of educating the people of Virginia, and I'm proud to say 5 generations of my family. Now, as the college's mission has expanded to the nation and the world beyond, it's fitting to recognize our very best in the continuation of such ideals. The 4 we honor today are among our college's most dedicated and accomplished alumni. They have demonstrated a love of their college and the communities they serve in countless ways. Their lives have provided all of us with a broader appreciation for commitment, values, and creative energy. We thank them for their leadership and for helping shape the future of William & Mary. Today, we have prepared video introductions about our recipients and their achievements, featuring words from those who know each of them well. We greatly appreciate the efforts of these friends as we honor the medallion recipients. Now, we are delighted to share these introductions with you and to celebrate the 2016 Alumni Medallion recipients. We begin with Glenmore Hines Harding, class of 1965.
Well, I think Glenn represents William & Mary so well in a variety of ways. She has been a significant achiever in not only the college activities in which she's been involved, but also her community through the work at Zonta and in other areas of service, as well as her profession, having been a signature officer, if you will, an employee at Hewlett-Packard. I think that what Glenn has shown is that if you work hard and you show up and you are energetic, enthusiastic, and intelligent, you will achieve much in the future that will be a reflection of what people at William & Mary are all about. When I reflect back about the success we had at our 50th reunion for the class of 1965, I always remember that we were having a great time. We were a good team, we worked together. When we were looking for a little banter, a little, let's say some sarcasm, maybe some wisecracking, you could probably hear that from Rich or from Tom or from me. But if we wanted sage advice, we'd always turn to Glenn. At Hewlett-Packard, I think you could best describe Glenn as a corporate pioneer. She very often was the first and only woman in the role in which she played as a financial or marketing officer and employee. She was highly respected by her co-workers and her superiors, her bosses, and she basically became a role model for all the women that followed. After 33 years at Hewlett-Packard, she built a significant reputation as someone who was a trailblazer, someone who recognized that the women in the marketplace had something to contribute and were an important part of a corporate environment. Well, Zonta is, of course, a worldwide organization that's dedicated to improving the status of women. She recognized the opportunity to help women through service, through scholarships, and by providing not only financial support but also her volunteer efforts. She was and continues to be a significant contributor to the development of women worldwide, improving their status and giving them a place in the world and a voice to speak about their place in that world. I believe Glenn's greatest contribution to William & Mary is what I'd call her contagious involvement. She is totally involved in the activities of the college. Distance does not make a difference for her. She lives in California, yet she shows up. She's always here, and she influences others. I think that Glenn exemplifies the Alumni Medallion because of her extraordinary contributions and commitment, not only to the college, where she's been a present and viable initiator and instigator of good things, but I think she also has contributed significantly to her community and to the profession at large. I think that Glenn is the person who is highly respected, is certainly selfless in her acts, and always gives back to the College of William & Mary to the greatest possible extent she can in that classic phrase of time and treasure and talents. I'm really proud to be a classmate of Glenn's, and we really do, all of us who nominated and who seconded that nomination, feel that this is the right time for Glenn to receive the award, and she's highly deserving of it. So we're really pleased that she's joined the ranks of the Alumni Medallion recipients.
Glenn, would you please join me on the stage? Glenn, on behalf of the William & Mary Alumni Association, I'm pleased to present you with our highest alumni award, the Alumni Medallion.
Thank you. Wow. I've addressed groups of thousands without this much nervousness. But last week in the paper, I was reading that Carol Burnett was feeling very nervous about her Life Achievement Award from the SAG. And if she can be nervous, I can be nervous. Thank you, William & Mary Alumni Association Board of Directors. I'm immensely surprised, grateful, flattered, proud, and humbled by this award. And a big thank you to Howard Busby for nominating me and for narrating that video. That was fabulous. And to the rest of the class of '65 Dream Team, Rich Kramer, Tom Hollowell, and Pam Michael for their support of that nomination. What wonderful friends we've become as we've worked together for William & Mary. We didn't know each other well in our time here at school. How in the world did I get here? I've concluded that strong academic preparation led to great job opportunities. Underpinned by my core values, they helped me have a successful career, which required and enabled me to give back. While searching old photos, some of which you saw, I found inside an old photo album copies of 3 poems that I had to memorize from elementary school. Do kids still have to memorize poems? One of Edgar Guest's starts, "Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he'd tried." And it ends with, "Just start in to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it." I guess that's why I like to sing so much. Another of Guest's poems goes, "Figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest of men have had, 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise." And ends, "So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You were born with all that the great have had. With your equipment, they all began. Get hold of yourself and say, I can. And an anonymous one that says, if you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. And ends, life's battles don't always go to the strongest or faster man, but soon or late, the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Today, I see these themes that have driven me. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Yes, you can. Or maybe the more modern Nike, just do it. But I noticed something else in those poems that I really hadn't noticed before. They were about lads and him and men. Really? I guess I missed that part when I was growing up. Clearly my parents, many teachers and others encouraged me. I'm grateful to all of them. My mother, a puller from Caroline County, insisted almost that I come to William and Mary, not normal or easy for an out-of-state girl from Chattanooga, Tennessee, but I did it. My engineer father encouraged me in math and science, a combination that has served me well. At William and Mary, of course, I remember the beanies, the priorities, the Ludwell bus, and those unique dress codes and quirky curfews for women. You can't speak to boys after 7? Seriously? More valuable were learning to play bridge and knit. It helped to be the dummy. And that always essential skill, stuffing crepe paper squares into chicken wire in case I need to build another float. I remember the math, science, and experimental psychology classes, how I learned to do research, analyze results, plan, write, and most importantly, to have confidence in my ability to apply those skills in many situations. I also remember being strongly encouraged to participate in activities outside of the classroom. I thought they were fun, that I was honing a number of new skills like leading, organizing, decision-making, communicating, and serving didn't dawn on me till much later. I suppose Hewlett-Packard liked what they saw in my academic background. I applied the same stick-to-itiveness in an environment created by Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, where talent was appreciated and adherence to strong core business values was rewarded. Civic engagement was expected, and I was lucky to be in that time and that place and ride that fantastic wave. So seeing what needs to be done and doing it and giving back are traditions in my life that were nurtured here. What better place to give back? Before I stop, I want to thank my helpmate, Dave Weibel, for his support as I continue this tradition. Thank you, Dave, and thank you all.
Thank you, Glenn. Our next recipient is Jane Thompson Kaplan, class of 1956.
We both had boyfriends who were on the basketball team, and they happened to be good friends. Rivals, but good friends. And we got together and went to a basketball tournament in Richmond to follow the guys, and that was a really fun time. And I really remember how warm and friendly and enthusiastic she was. That has brought us in contact with all the basketball activities here. Jane has co-chaired the Lord Body Tot auction. She and Jim always attend that, and in addition to that, they're always patrons. They're always buying at the auction. They're just fantastic supporters of the auction and the Tribe Club. Jane just volunteers. She's always volunteering, always entertaining. She's just unflappable too. And she's got a lot of energy and just keeps on going. She's on the board of the Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation. She was on the steering committee of the Catholic Ministries. She's very, very involved in everything going on in Williamsburg as well as at William & Mary. I would say her greatest contribution to William & Mary is her loyalty. She's loyal to the school, she's loyal to the students, she's loyal to former students. Anything she can do to further the cause of William & Mary, Jane would do. Back when we were young, struggling parents raising kids, she still found time to be on the board of the annual fund and to be a class agent. She and Jim, when they were in California, got together the first group of people from William & Mary. She called friends who called friends, and they all got together at their house, about 40 people, some of whom she had never met before. Now, the 60th reunion is coming up, and Jane is determined not to let that go unnoticed. She is already making plans for a reunion. She's just a William & Mary person through and through. She believes in giving back to William & Mary. I just can't think of anybody that deserves it more.
Jane, would you please join me on the stage? Jane, on behalf of the William & Mary Alumni Association, I am pleased to present you with our highest alumni award, the Alumni Medallion.
I am so lucky to be up here with my fellow recipients, Glenn, Ann, and Pete. Congratulations to the three of you. But the best part of this weekend for me is having my children, their spouses, my grandchildren, so many friends, and some of them came from out of state to be here for me. Thank you so much. Back when I was a high school senior in Illinois, I was pretty blasé about college. I told my father that I thought I'd go to Pomona. He said, "No, you won't, Jane. I am not paying the airfare to California." So when my friend Donna said, "Let's go to William & Mary," I thought it sounded like a great adventure. Donna didn't apply. So I came with my family, never having seen the school. And by the time we got closer to Virginia, I wondered about that adventure. But I arrived at Ludwell, where they stashed most of the out-of-state girls, made so many good friends there. I had class at the Wren Building. I had Dr. Guy for chemistry. I had Dr. Fowler for history. Boy, did I make the right choice. Thanks, Donna. It was a wonderful 4 years. I had accidentally arrived at the best place for me. Our friend Pete, who's here, introduced Jim and I, and after graduation, we were married in Illinois, and my roommate Faye married Jim's roommate Ed on Long Island. It was really a small school. Then we were off on our trek through all the states, but always we would find alums with whom to connect. Even though we spent 11 years in California, we stayed involved because of the great experiences we had had here. I thought everyone felt that way about their college, but I was wrong. Terry Driscoll told me I was wrong. It is a special place. My brother followed me here. One of our sons, Jim, came here, got his MBA, and a wife. And now we have a grandson, Jamie, who's the class of 2017. At the urging of Herb and Ginger Clapp, we managed to move to Williamsburg about 18 years ago and saw more alums than I ever thought possible that lived in Williamsburg. I checked out the alumni directory, and it's a couple years old, but there are between 3,000 and 4,000 listed in Williamsburg. I don't know where they all are, but they're here. We made a lot of new friends here and managed to get several of them involved with the college. It's been our pleasure to give back in any way we can. It's been a great ride. So thanks, Donna. Thanks for the suggestion. As Robert Frost said, I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Our next recipient is Walter W. Stout III, class of 1964.
There was an unbelievable mystery when I was in undergraduate school because the Pica House, which was about a lodge, which was about 2 lodges removed from ours, they were known as the hot dogs. And so they were very good athletically, but everyone thought they just carried everything a little bit too far. One morning we woke up and there was a hand-painted sign on the Pica roof that faced the campus in great big 6-foot letters that said hot dogs. And to this day, as far as I know, this is a cold case. Nobody's ever solved it. And I'm wondering if maybe Pete can shed some light on that when he receives the Alumni Medallion Award. I've been inspired to nominate Pete because in undergraduate school, he excelled in athletics. He played football and ran track. He got an honorary award in ROTC. He was also president of his fraternity, SAE. He then went into the Army. He went to Vietnam for a tour, got the Bronze Star, which is a really, really big deal. Then he came back. He started a small practice where he did civil and criminal litigation. And then he was appointed to the General District Court. He served on General District Court until I think 1984. He then was elevated and appointed to the Circuit Court. First of all, Richmond has a very, very busy docket. He was very, very tied up with complex civil litigation and complex criminal work, including capital murder cases. He was also named the head judge in the Richmond Circuit Court. And the Circuit Court makes all local advanced decisions, and if they appeal, they then go to either Intermediate Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. So it's a very, very important court, the highest local court that there is in the state of Virginia. There was a 2007 graduate from Marshall Wythe School of Law who's appeared before Pete a lot and wrote a very, very compelling letter to support Pete's nomination. I'd just like to read a couple of things from his letter. Pete was widely appreciated as one of the most knowledgeable, well-reasoned, patient, and just members of Virginia's judiciary. He followed the core tenet of the, quote, citizen lawyer, unquote, that is taught and emphasized at the Marshall Wythe School of Law for lawyers to have the fundamental obligation to use their talents for the betterment of their communities. There is no finer example of a citizen lawyer than the Honorable Walter W. Stout III. Throughout his professional career, Judge Stout's dedication to his community was unwavering. He treated individuals from every walk of life with courtesy and respect. His public service came in the face of tremendous pressure and involved the highest imaginable stakes, yet his commitment to his community never wavered. He upheld his oath to maintain unmitigated neutrality for nearly 3 decades. It was an honor to appear before Judge Stout as a litigant and remains a privilege to be his friend. In my opinion, bestowing the Alumni Medallion to Judge Stout would appropriately recognize a man who embodies the dedication to public service that the college continues to extol. Pete has excelled in leadership in everything he's done, including all of his campus activities, including his Army activities, including his legal activities. And I think his best characteristic are the characteristics of almost all the Alumni Medallion winners. He has a great career accomplishment and success. He has characteristics that distinguish him from normal people just by virtue of the way he carries himself and what he does. And I think Pete has the qualities that everyone is looking for in a leader and also in a recipient for the Alumni Medallion. In closing, I just think that Pete is very, very deserving of the Alumni Medallion. He served his college with great distinction, and I just like to, I'm honored to be his nominator, and I offer my congratulations, and I also offer a big fist pump to Pete Stout, the new Alumni Medallion Award winner.
Pete, would you please join me on stage? Pete, on behalf of the William and Mary Alumni Association, I'm pleased to present you our highest alumni award, the Alumni Medallion.
It's a little unnerving sitting there because none of us have seen the videos. It really is scary. I will state that what Art talked about was a misdemeanor and the statute has long since run. Happily. I'd like to start by thanking Art and his brother Pat, who did a lot of work on the nomination, and I appreciate that. Some others that were involved are Clyde Culp, Rich Kramer, Howard Busby, who seems to be a kingmaker, Henry George, Chris Tepp. And I'd also like to thank the board for their consideration for this award. Carol Brown Quaintance was my uncle. He was also the father of Lucy Ann Quaintance Meyer, affectionately known as Pud. And we came to William & Mary in 1960 as freshmen, exactly 40 years after Carol matriculated as a freshman. He never told us, and never told me, I'm not sure what he told Pud, but he never said, go to William & Mary, I want you to go to William & Mary. But long before that decision had to be made, he had laid a groundwork very subtly, and there was no question where I was going when the admissions came through. Carol was a initiator and founder of Lambda Chi fraternity on this campus. He was a 1924 graduate, Phi Beta Kappa in math and chemistry, subsequently became a patent attorney with an international practice. He was president of the Alumni Association and a recipient of this award in 1934, the first year it was given. He is the inspiration and model for my involvement in William & Mary, which changed my life greatly and very positively. I got back to William & Mary in a way that many people in Richmond did. I received a call from Jim Ukrop asking me to volunteer to raise money for athletics, and it happened to hit at a very significant time because the administration was considering de-emphasizing football. And they issued a challenge to the Athletic Educational Foundation to double the money that was raised in the country for athletics in 1973. It seemed a daunting task, but in the Richmond area, Jim and Dennis Grant put together a telethon. And in that one night, we raised the same amount of money in Richmond that was raised in the country. The football team had been advised of the de-emphasis, not advised, but the word got out. They had a very poor season. They were told the week before the Richmond game that de-emphasis was off the table because of the amount of money that had been raised. A decided underdog to Richmond that year, they won 54-12. I would suggest that maybe we try that next year. Carol, being the inspiration and model for me, I stayed involved, and it's one of the most positive factors in my life to be associated and working and involved with this institution as it progresses to further greatness is a wonderful thing. But the best thing is the people involved. And working with them, consistently great people. Carol was one of those great people. And I would like to dedicate this award to his memory. One last thing. The amount that we raised that year and was raised in '73 for all athletics was $60,000. It's hard to believe. Now we have a $1 billion campaign going on with the leadership of President Reevely and Sue Gertelman and Matthew Lambert. We're more than halfway to that goal. All I can say is, go Tribe.
Thank you, Pete. Our next recipient is Ann Harvey Yonkers, class of 1963.
The first thing to do is to go back to the climate of the college in 1963. We had just been through 8 years of peace, progress, and prosperity under General Eisenhower as president. The country was in a very bullish mood. People had a great sense of the future, and everybody was on a path to do something good. And William & Mary was a very happy place at that time. In May 1963, just before our graduation, I had Ann and a group of the Mortar Board, which was the leadership society for women at the college. They wanted a statement to be rendered on William & Mary integrating racially. And we used to say, in fact, at William & Mary, you know, the country had the Kennedys and we had the Harvey girls. Ann was one of 3. She was the middle sister of a lovely family from Northern Virginia. And she came up with these other compatriots of hers about that statement. So Ann and I, in particular, worked together. And that was one of the first great moves that William & Mary made toward this whole long change that went through on the path of diversity and later affirmative action and other things that took place in colleges and in schools. But above all, she stood for something. And I remember that. And to me, that's always a good indication something else is going to happen to a person like that later in life. Her life story divides into 3 parts: her interest in people, her interest in food, and her interest in the land. In fact, when she graduated in the early years, she went over to West Africa as a member of the Peace Corps with her husband. So she had that sense of outreach and service. Then she got interested in food. She then got a culinary degree. She then wound up consulting with public relations and legal firms in the food sector in Washington. And then finally, she started editing and collaborating on some books, including with leading chefs in the DC area like Restaurant Nora. As I hear it, about 20 years ago, she and her family had bought a property over the Eastern Shore, and she became quite concerned about the practices of farming and how they were hurting the water and the fate of the bay. And she had an epiphany, she says, in which she said, I've got to do something to get people eating better and help save the bay. That was the beginning moment of Fresh Farm Markets. Her style seemed to be that of a visionary intelligence, a natural leader, someone who had a great, generous spirit of goodwill, who obviously led this organization through the whole era of 20, 30 years of changing expectations for women professionally in our workforce, which has to be kept in mind. And she was later named as one of the top 100 women in the Washington, D.C. area professionally for 2, 3, 4 years by organizations. So she became quite a presence in the area. She actually created what I call a revolution in this field. She became a national voice in sustainable agriculture, and she developed around 5 concentric circles. She started with producers. She then went out to get better eating habits established among residents of Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas. She then actually created, through the food markets, what I just call community squares, social squares, where people would come down Saturday morning, leisurely talk, walk, hear music, and the sense of bondedness in the Washington, D.C. areas where her markets existed created community. And then she built a regional industry. And finally, there she is, at the end of that biggest circle, she's starting to repair the land of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. She was an entrepreneur, a clear innovator. She led with public-private partnerships, which is a way to deal in organizational effectiveness today. She's a change agent. She had a revealing social conscience with everything. And I think if William and Mary is to celebrate 100 years of co-education in the near future, people like Anne Harvey Yonkers need to be considered closely for awards like this one.
Anne, would you please join me on stage? And on behalf of the William and Mary Alumni Association, I am pleased to present you with our highest alumni award, the Alumni Medallion.
Well, I knew I was going to be last because I happened to find a very wonderful man whose name was Yonkers. So in almost every ceremony of my life, I'm near the end, but it was worth it. And he's here today. When I was a senior, I was elected to Mortar Board, which was an honorary organization for leadership, scholarship, and service. And I always thought to myself that that was an honor of the best honor that I got, because it actually represented, a body of work in my college years. But to have this award, which is for a lifetime of work, is simply overwhelming. So it mirrors what I already had achieved and been so proud of. So to be in the company of my fellow awardees this year, but also to receive this honor from William and Mary, it's just the best. It's the best. So I have a lot of people to thank today. I want to start with the Harvey girls. Both of my sisters, Maureen Harvey and Lorette Harvey, are here today. Maureen Harvey graduated from William & Mary in 1961. She was a junior when I arrived as a freshman. She had already established herself as a BWOC. Everybody knew her. She was a student leader. She was on the Honor Society. She was certainly a triple threat, a scholar, a leader, and a beauty queen. And so the fact of the matter is, when she graduated and eventually was Phi Beta Kappa and a presidential scholar, she set the bar impossibly high for her sisters. I mean, it was just something that we could not manage to achieve. And then my younger sister, Lorette Harvey, graduated in 1966. And she chose to completely ignore the challenge of that kind of a legacy and actually build and have a wonderful experience for herself at William & Mary that didn't owe anything to her sister. And then and she was also in a different time. I mean, what Jerry was talking about in the video was that Maureen and I were much more coming out of those 50s and early 60s, but Lorette was in the midst of what really became, the civil rights movement, the women's lib movement. And so she was much more of a free spirit. She may have had the most fun at William & Mary of all of us. And then went on from college to get 3 postgraduate degrees and be a teacher, and eventually has been a therapist, much respected in the Washington, D.C. area. So the Harvey girls came to William & Mary because my parents, Mary Harvey and Darcy Harvey, came to Williamsburg and loved it and fell in love with it, and then they came to the college and fell in love with the college. And so they said, well, basically, this is where the girls are going. I mean, there was never any discussion. And, of course, if we were in a different era and, whether our fates would have been so successful in today's very competitive atmosphere at William & Mary, I don't know. But the people that we miss and we wish were here today are our parents, because they would have been amazed and they would have been so proud. And they would have said, well, we really made the right decision for you, because this is So I have a brother-in-law here, Maureen's husband, who taught at William & Mary for 3 years, David Hartsband. So he's made a return to the college and went to VIMS, where he worked when he was here. My daughter, Kate, and her husband, Kelly, and my 3 grandsons, Cyrus and Darcy and Ronan, are being introduced to William & Mary. They're 12 and 10 and 8. We have a friend, Colleen Conroy, here with us today, who is a friend from the pictures that you saw of us in the Peace Corps. So an old and dear friend. Nora, who you saw in the film, is really the responsible for giving the start to Fresh Farm Market, where I worked for over 20 years directing this nonprofit. But she came back from a trip to Washington, having gone to the green markets in New York, and said, we need farmers markets like this in Washington, D.C., and you, Anne, are going to start them. I have 2 of my Tri-Delta sisters, Lucy Huggard, who lives very close in Seaford, and then a surprise entry, Babs Bowman, who was my roommate and great friend, who came all the way from California to be here today. And then 2 of the 3 people that were really responsible for submitting this application are here today. And one of them is Teddy McVeigh. Many of you in the alumni, she doesn't need an introduction. The woman is a force. And she's here today, and she is responsible for one of my letters of recommendation. And the other person that's here is Mike Koch. And Mike Koch is my successor at Fresh Farm Market. So he is the new executive director, and guess what? He's a William and Mary graduate. So we have a theme going here. And Jerry, Jerry was responsible, bugging me for 2 years to make this application and work on the application for him. So I'm with Pete, sort of, I didn't know what was going to happen in that video, but he did a wonderful job. He thought he fluffed it because he was too serious, but you know, he's a serious guy and so am I, so he did a great job. Finally, Charlie Yonkers, who I mentioned earlier, who is, I just want to thank him for, I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't married Charlie, because Charlie has given me the opportunity to be who I am and not be challenged, not to support me, to encourage me. And you know, life is a journey. You have to figure out how to do it and who you are. I have a couple things I want to say about William and Mary. I owe so much to the school. I had what is a classic liberal arts education here. But of course, the classic part of the liberal arts education is what you study. The part that you carry with you is what you take from all those different sources: art, literature, music, biology, science. And what I think of, when I think of the college, is that I think of it as creating the intellectual architecture that basically was the underpinning of the rest of my learning through life, that it just gave me the structure into which I could fit a lot of things. My first inkling that I was in a very different place came on probably the first or second day of botany. And my professor was Alex Baldwin. He was a great, rangy professor with this wild head of hair, and he was sort of like the mad professor, and we were all in the classroom. He says, "We're going to look at the trees." So he took us out to the front yard of the Wren building, and he introduced us to each of the magnificent trees that were growing there. And, you know, I thought to myself, I didn't even ever notice that trees were so important. But, you know, that has turned out to be now at our farm, at Popeye Farm. My husband has planted over 100 trees, and we talk about them all the time. So it was an introduction, you know, those kinds of things that you remember. And then I had a young professor, John Locke, who taught philosophy, and he and the head of the department, Professor McDonald, had a sophomore seminar that I attended with some of the smartest philosophy students in my class. And he asked us to write a paper about the meaning of life. And the paper that I wrote was a reflection, of course, of who I was then, which was, I was a product of Catholic education, and I wrote basically just my vision of life was to serve God and to be, you know, just to find out through my religion what to do. And he gave me the most amazing grade. He graded the paper an A, and he wrote at the top of the paper, "This is a beautiful poem." And that has been something I've thought about my whole life. You know, it wasn't, at that time, it wasn't a particularly examined vision of life, and he just gave me enough of a response that I was able to see that I just knew something was important in that message, and I've thought about it many, many times since. So, and then finally, the most important professor that when I was here was Morton Frisch, and he was from University of Chicago, and he taught me government. And he his enthusiasm for the great minds, the government minds, never ebbed. And he had this way of talking where he would get excited and his voice would go up in the classroom, and I just was mesmerized by what he knew, and he eventually became my thesis advisor when I wrote my thesis as an undergraduate on Winston Churchill and the Duke of Marlborough as his model. And Morton Frisch and his family became lifelong friends of Charlie and mine, and it was a legacy that the college gave me that was so amazing. And then finally, the Exeter Exchange Scholarship, which, I stood on the dock of the New York docks with my little pink coat and a pillbox hat, white gloves. And I got on that boat, the Rotterdam, and I went out to discover the rest of my life, and here I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ann. Now, please join me as we give another round of applause for all 4 of our Alumni Medallion recipients. At the conclusion of our ceremony, I'd like to ask the Alumni Medallion recipients to please come forward after the alma mater for a group photo. To close our ceremony, members of the William and Mary Choir will sing Shenandoah, followed by our alma mater. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your Charter Day weekend. And now the choir.